All right, I've been doing a lot of interviews lately, and I'm very glad to be welcoming a new friend for another interview this morning. I discovered who Mao was. I think she wrote me, but I've been curious in who the coordinators of the WCA are throughout the United States. Mao is the coordinator up in Wisconsin. Annual conference, and so they just got done with their annual conference last week. I have not read the updates on it. Mao, I already know, is the first Hmong ordained clergy person in the United Methodist Church. There's a lot more about her that is worthy of distinction and getting to know. So we're going to learn about her story and then also talk about the present moment in the United Methodist Church and why it is that she feels it's important for us to be having the kind of conversations that we are. So I'm excited just to sit back and learn from Mao for a bit. Mao, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me, Jeffrey.
Yeah, I'm really glad to have you, and it looks like you're having a good. Is this your home office? Just your home? Is this your church office? Where are you at?
This is my home. Ever since COVID, I have been having a hard time getting myself back to the office. I'm too comfortable at home.
Yeah, home's a good place, and the office can be a good place, but if you can get good
Yeah,
work done at home, why go out? So.
I know. That's my reason every day. That's why it's so hard for me to get myself back to the office.
So is you live in what, Greenfield, Wisconsin? Is that right?
Yeah, the church I serve is in Greenfield, but I live in Greendale. So there's like neighborhood. It's a small village. Yeah, right. Suburb of Milwaukee.
A suburb of Milwaukee. Oh, okay, great.
Yeah,
I kind of know
south
that
side of
area.
Milwaukee. Yeah,
And you've
yeah.
been there. Have you been at the same church since 2013? Did I see? I stalked you on Facebook.
Yeah. I've been here since then. This is actually my first church. I'm a very new pastor compared to others, but I've been here for 10 years, and this is my one and only church
That's
that I have pastored.
that's really nice. That's really nice. And did I'm not on your. Did Was it Garrett Seminary that you attended?
I attended Gare Seminary for my MDiv. Yes.
Okay, excellent. Well, that's so we know you
Uh-huh.
you are a Northern American person, but you're also from the ethnic Hmong group, which I don't know a whole
Yeah.
lot about. I'd be surprised if many
Yeah.
people in my audience know a whole lot about. So, how about let's start with your personal story. Were you born in the U.S. or were you born in Eastern Asia
No.
somewhere?
Yeah, I was born in Southeast Asia, Laos.
Okay,
My family came to this country. Um, we settled in this country in 1979 as immigrants from the Vietnam War. My dad was involved with the Vietnam War, and so 1975, when the CIA pulled out from Laos, all of the American supporters had to escape, or they were, face judgment. And so my dad was able to get the family out. And we lived in a refugee camp for 4 years, in Thailand for 4 years. And then we got a sponsor we came to this country through the Catholic charity. And so they sponsored us, and we came to this country in 1979. And I was 11 years old when we came to this country. Yeah.
so you're thoroughly Americanized then. If you came
I,
here at 11 years old, but
yeah.
how much do you feel like culturally that you have a lot of your, is it Laotian? How do you pronounce it? Laotian
Yeah.
heritage?
Well, yeah, Laos is the country,
Right,
but Hmong people are the minority, the ethnic group in Laos. So we are still, very minority. Hmong people don't have a country of our own.
right, yeah,
Hmong people, the majority of the Hmong people still are in China.
okay.
Um, but during the China Revolution,
Hmm.
they chased out the Hmong people, and so the Hmong people are kind of like spread out all over Southeast Asia. You have Hmong people in Vietnam, you have Hmong people in Thailand, Laos, Burma, all over Southeast Asia. You'll find Hmong people.
So both of your parents are ethnic Hmong, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you were raised in a household that was culturally Hmong, but then did you
Yes.
attend public school in America growing up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. In this country, then I attended public school. Yeah.
When your family moved here, was it to Wisconsin?
No, I I actually been in probably more states than most people. I moved so much.
Is that so?
Our sponsor, initially we settled in Toledo, Ohio. And then we were there for a year. And my parents decided that they want to move to California, where there was a lot of Hmong refugees settled in Fresno, California. Because the Hmong people, they like to live in community. They want to follow each other. Settling in this country where there's no Hmong people, and it's hard. It's hard for our elderly to adjust to the culture, to people who they don't understand the language, and they don't care about the food, and so it just they just want to be where they're comfortable. So they took us to California, and we settled in Fresno, California for like a year, and then I have an older sister who was married, and she came to this country maybe a couple of years before we did. And she and her husband lived in Dallas, Texas. So they asked my parents why don't you guys come down to Dallas, Texas? Life would be better down here. And so we moved to Dallas, Texas. And that is where I went to high school. I graduated from Kimball High School in Dallas, Texas. And then from there, my parents wanted to move back to Toledo, Ohio for whatever reason. And so they moved back up to Toledo, Ohio. And so when I finished high school, I followed them up there. And then my dad, was a church planter in his own right. Everywhere he goes, he planted a church. And so when we were in Toledo, Ohio, he felt the need to go to Detroit, Michigan to plant a Hmong church there, because there was quite a large Hmong community in Detroit at that time. And so I ended up in Detroit. My parents ended up moving to Detroit. And so, so I was in Detroit working, trying to get back to school when my husband found me, and then we got married. And then I moved back to Texas because my husband was going to Dallas Theological Seminary there. And so I ended up moving back to Dallas, Texas, and I attended Criswell College and got my biblical studies through the Criswell College there. Yeah. So I move all over.
Yeah, you have. So how did you, so we need to come back and figure out how you got to Wisconsin, where you are now. But before that, let's talk about, you said your father was a church planter for the Hmong church. Is that a sect of Christianity, or is that, okay, tell us about the Hmong faith.
Yeah. My dad and my mom, they became Christian. They converted into Christianity way before I was born. If you didn't know anything about the Hmong people, to be a Hmong is to be born into shamanism. That's their religion. So to be a Hmong is to be shaman, is to practice shaman as the religion. And shamanism is kind of like an animistic religion where they feed ancestor, but they also feed spirits. There's this belief that there are spirits everywhere. So there's a lot of superstition, but there's also really real evil spirits that are present in the community. And so my dad was tormented by an evil spirit, and that's how he became Christian. He was tormented to the point where he was literally dying. He couldn't eat. He couldn't go anywhere. He sleeps with a rifle on his side because the evil spirit would come and torment him every night. And when he just so happened he visited a friend, and he saw a Bible, and he started reading the Bible, and he says, well, if this God can save me from this spirit, I will become a Christian. And so, he did. He became a Christian, and God saved him. And so he just never turned back. The evil spirit's gone, and he moved into the Christian community. And so
was that while he was still living in Laos, or was that after?
Yeah, this was before I was born. It was in Laos. Yeah. Okay. And so that's why, even though I'm Hmong, but I was born into a Christian family, and that, being a Christian is all I know. We never practiced shamanism or anything like that. And so, the Christian Mission Alliance, I don't know if you're familiar with this denomination.
Sort of, yeah.
The Christian Mission Alliance were the missionary who came to evangelize Laos back in the 50s. And when they came to Laos, originally they were just trying to evangelize to the native Laotian, but they didn't have any success. And so they journeyed to the mountain where the Hmong people are. Hmong people are mountain people. They live in the villages up in the high mountains. And so the missionaries went to one of the Hmong village and was able to successfully converted, healed a lady who was possessed by demons. And the missionary healed this lady, and then as a result, the whole village became Christians. Because when you can convert the shaman in the village, the whole town, the whole village will become Christian.
Sure.
So, I mean, if you have time, you could do some research on the people movement in Laos in the 50s, and that is where the Hmong people were. You have vast majority of Hmong people coming to converting to Christianity.
Really?
In that time, yeah. And so that's when and that's how the gospel got to Laos. And then what was I going to say? Yeah, so the Christian Mission Alliance were the only denomination that the Hmong people know.
Okay.
That were Christian. So even when we came to this country, we didn't know about different denominations. We just thought that, the CMA for acronym is the only true denomination. That's all we know.
Yeah.
But when we came to this country, because my dad, he truly is a man after God's own heart. He's not perfect, but he was devoted to God.
Yeah.
And so he wanted to be a pastor in the Christian Mission Alliance Church, but because he was older and he didn't have the credential, they wouldn't allow him to be a pastor. So someone from the Southern Baptists recruited him to join the Southern Baptists.
Oh.
So he joined the Southern Baptists, and then he was able to get his certificate, and he became a pastor for the Hmong churches. And so that's how he planted churches. So he planted a few Hmong churches, but also because he speaks Laotian, he also planted a few Laotian churches in this country.
Are there many Hmong Southern Baptist Convention churches?
Yeah, there's actually more. There are more Southern Baptist Hmong churches than Methodists.
Well, sure, yeah.
Yeah,
that's interesting. So he became a Southern Baptist pastor when you were how old?
I was probably a teenager.
Okay, and then you were raised going to the churches that your father was leading.
Yeah.
So you're a preacher's kid. I'm a preacher's kid too. I was raised going to. So then, did you you met your husband, who's also Hmong? Did you meet him at church or another network?
Well, he was actually attending Dallas Theological Seminary in Dallas, Texas, while I was in Michigan. But my sister, I have 3 sisters who were married and who also live in Dallas, Texas, and so. He came to church and he met them, and then they introduced, him to me, and so that's how we got to know each other.
Very good.
So he was actually CMA, and I was Southern Baptist when we met, and so from Southern Baptist I came back to CMA because he was a CMA and he was ordained. He was an ordained pastor in the CMA church.
Okay.
And so I was a pastor's wife, for many years. But in 1994, when I graduated, it was 1998 when my husband and I was still in Dallas, Texas, and he was pastoring a Hmong CMA church in Dallas, Texas. That my dad decided to retire from his church in Detroit, Michigan. And he wanted my husband to come in and take over after that church.
Oh, neat.
So that's why we went back into the Southern Baptists because of that.
Sure. Okay.
So from Dallas, Texas, we moved to Michigan, Detroit.
Yeah.
So my husband can pastor the Southern Baptist Church that my dad planted there. So my life is all.
You're more adventurous than the average person. So you were living in Michigan as a pastor's wife. Did you and your husband have children at all?
Yeah, we have 3 children.
Okay.
We have 3 children.
So then did your children get to watch you go into ministry, or were they too young to watch that?
Okay, so from Michigan,
Yes.
We moved to Winona to pastor a Southern Baptist church there. And in the Southern Baptist, my husband was a bivocation pastor because they couldn't afford him full time, so he was working. He just helping the church on the side. Mm-hmm. And so in Winona, Minnesota, the church was really small, and it was to the point. And I don't know if you've ever been to Winona. It's a beautiful city, but it's really small. There's nothing. There's nothing there. And so my husband and I, we were to the point where if we didn't do something else with ministry, we're just gonna probably just quit ministry and just work and just become lay people, you know. But somehow he got connected with one of his nephew who is a part of the Wisconsin Annual Conference, and he called my husband and says that Wisconsin Annual Conference has an opportunity for a church plant for a Hmong church in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and would my husband consider joining the United Methodist and planting a Hmong church in Green Bay. And so we prayed about it, and then we didn't know too much about the Methodists at that time. Sure, we just thought they were Christian, just like us. If they are. If you read, we read their doctrine, and they are. Sure. I mean, they're
very solid doctrine. Yeah,
very solid doctrines. And so okay. So we take it as an opportunity to be missionary, to join, to be a part of this mission, and so. Mm-hmm. We say yes, and then we moved to Green Bay. So we planted. My husband started a church that we did plant a small church there, and then it was during the time that we were in Green Bay that I started to because in the Southern Baptist and the CMA they do not affirm women leadership. Right. They don't affirm women's preachers. So the thought about being a pastor never crossed my mind. And when we came into the Methodist Church, there are people who say, well, we think that you have the gift, for ministry, for pastor. I said, are you crazy? My dad's a pastor. My husband's a pastor. Why do I want to be a pastor? I knew a pastor, It's like, it's just like, that's crazy, I love the church and I would serve as a pastor's wife, but I would never thought about being a pastor.
Right. Yeah.
But, as I continue to serve, I think it's just God's calling. I mean, I never set out to be a Hmong pastor. I never set out to be the first Hmong pastor, female pastor, Yeah. It just so happened that this is just how I ended up with. And I think it's all God's calling, God's grace on me. Yeah. So I from there, I went to seminary. I attended seminary, and then I graduated in a little bit over 3 years. And then I was appointed to this church. Yeah.
And then your husband, is he also ordained within the United Methodist Church now?
Yeah, he was ordained. He came into the United Methodist Church as a Southern Baptist clergy. Mm-hmm. So his process was a little bit different from mine. Yeah. But he was ordained as well. Yeah.
So does he pastor a different church than you?
Not right now. He was when I was appointed to Greenfield here. We were in Green Bay, so they had to find another church for him. Mm-hmm. He was pastoring another church about an hour from here, and he'd been through several churches. And eventually, last year, when they appointed him to a Hmong church in the Milwaukee area, but the Hmong church decided that they did not want to disaffiliate, and so he just felt that wasn't where he needs to be. So he actually he became a GMC clergy early on this year, but now he's working and he's just kind of waiting for me and to see what's going to happen to our church. And but the end of this month, and when we are finally officially disaffiliated from the Wisconsin conference, then my husband and I, we do have plans to start small groups and to maybe reaching out to the Hmong people in our community here because to be honest, even in our days, in the Hmong community,
Mm-hmm.
they still don't see me as a pastor.
Yeah.
I think it would be really hard for a Hmong woman to plant a church.
Mm-hmm.
My husband would have a good chance, because people still, there's still this thing about women preacher. They're not supposed to do that. In the community. So
The church that you currently serve, is it majority Hmong or is it Anglo?
No, it's an Anglo church.
Okay.
It's like 99% white people.
Yeah. So let me go back to your children. How old are they now?
My oldest is 31.
Oh, wow.
My second oldest is 30, and my youngest is 21.
Okay. Are you a grandmother yet?
I am a grandmother.
Wonderful.
And then I have another one on the way.
Okay. Well, that's exciting. It's a fun stage of life. I don't know personally, but my parents love being grandparents. So.
Oh my gosh. You don't die before you become a grandparent.
Yeah. I have my eldest is a 7-year-old girl. Then I have a 5-year-old boy, a 3-year-old girl, and a 1-year-old girl. So
you have a long way to wait.
Yeah. We enjoy this stage of life, but I'm sure we will enjoy being grandparents as well, God willing. So you're serving a majority Anglo church. Is your church conservative, liberal, a mix?
I think we're pretty. We're good Methodists. I think Methodists are nice, right? But theologically, I believe that for the most part, most of the Methodists who are sitting on the pews are still evangelical, but because the pastor is not preaching the gospel, they assume that they're Christian, but they really, theologically they don't have the discernment, So I think for the most part, those who continues to come to church and to hear me, I would say that they are conservative and traditionalists, even though they may disagree with me on the issue of homosexuality. But when you preach the gospel, and this is what the scripture says, they say okay, So and I think this is why we were, our church was able to. We voted, I think 85%. When our church voted to disaffiliate, it was like 85 or 80%.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So I know a little bit about Wisconsin Annual Conference because I just yesterday recorded a segment on the Amy DeLong trial, which took place in 2011. This was an open practicing lesbian who performed a gay union ceremony and spent a lot of church dollars on a trial that ended up with a slap on the wrist. So even before that, the whole conference had come out in favor of solidarity with the LGBTQ agenda. And so this is a left-leaning annual conference that you're serving. So I want to ask you two questions. One, how did they treat you as you came into the conference, into clergy? And then two, how was it to go through the disaffiliation process? How were they hostile at all? So I'm saying that so I don't forget. So as you entered the candidacy process in what, 2010?
2010, yeah.
Okay.
I think when I started seminary, I started my process right away.
So that
it's a long process, yeah.
They were already out as a liberal progressive annual conference. Were you aware of that when you began the candidacy process?
I wasn't aware.
Okay.
I wasn't aware because like I said, I came in from the Southern Baptist, and I assumed the Methodists are Christian. They believe in Jesus and God, just like me. So, and I have my doubt, but I always say, well, maybe that's just how they understand God and Jesus, because they always preach about God and Jesus, and so that's why if people who sits on the pew, if they don't know, if they don't pay attention, or they do not know their scripture, and they're not convicted, then they're gonna think that no, they're just preaching the same gospel. They love Jesus, they love God,
Yeah.
And so I was, I even going through seminary, you probably know Garrett is probably one of the most liberal, progressive seminary. And I went through that, and even going through seminary, I was still like, well, maybe this is just how they teach, so that we can become, better, better clergy. I never knew the politics behind that. I never knew the progressive agenda behind all of this. And it wasn't until 2019, the special annual conference, when I saw the ugliness of people.
Oh.
And I said, you know what? Before the 2019 special general conference, I was still kind of on the fence. I wasn't outspoken. I was just, trying to be kind and be nice. I was just, trying to do my own thing. But it was after the 2019 special annual conference when I see how ugly, people can be.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what? If the progressive can be so loud and vicious about what they believe, which is so not biblical,
right?
Right? Why shouldn't I be? Why shouldn't I be vocal?
Yeah.
And so that's when I came out really strong, and I started talking about it to my leadership team. And some of the leaders in the church were very angry at me, because they just cannot believe that. And this is the thing: most people don't. They have they're like a frog sitting in a slowly cooking pot, and they don't know it.
Yeah.
And so when you tell them that this is what our church and our bishop and our clergies are teaching, they're like, no, that can't be right. They were actually mad at me for saying that this is what they're teaching.
Yes.
I said, no, but you have to go and do your own research. This is what they're teaching. And so it took me, some time to really, convince the leadership, a team, that this is what our denomination is teaching, and this is the direction that they're going.
Yeah.
And and I think it's because the time that I've been there to build relationship, that they were able to put their trust in what I say. A new clergy wouldn't able to do it.
Yeah.
Just because the people has been brainwashed. I use that word lightly, but I mean they have no clue what being a Christian is. And what disturbs me is when I ask clergies who I thought that were pretty solid in their theology, and when I ask them, do you believe that Jesus is the only way to God? And they pause. They say, I don't know. This is when I know that no.
Yeah, when people, this is what has been exposed in the present moment in the United Methodist Church, is that so few have discernment, and it's been very difficult to reckon with the lack of discernment on the part of leadership, whether you're talking about denominational leadership, bishops, or you're talking about clergy, laity. Even in any given Christian tradition, the laity should also know what they believe and why, and be able to discern the difference between the Jesus of the Bible and the Jesus that the culture wants to believe in. And when we don't have that discernment, and they don't know the difference between those, then we're lost. We don't even have anything to offer that's different from the world. So that's the frustration. I want to go back to your ordination process, though, because your sensibilities, if you were in the Christian Missionary Alliance and the Southern Baptist Convention, you would be very conservative in your theology. As you went through the ordination process, appeared before the Board of Ordained Ministry, wrote your papers and stuff, did you get much hard pushback from the conference leadership?
I did not.
That's interesting to me.
I
have a Substack where I wrote down my story, and I got all kinds of pushback from a conference that was much less liberal than yours. I wonder how much, do you have any thoughts on if they were more accepting of you because you are a woman and because you're an ethnic minority? Do you think that was the main reason why, or do you think they're just nicer?
I do think that's the reason why. I think it's because, my gender and my ethnicity, I think, play into that role. I think, because, the conference, pride themselves on diversity, and Wisconsin, I mean, to their credit, they're probably one of the most diverse conference as far as clergy
Is
as
that
far as
so?
clergy.
I didn't know
Because,
that.
I think we have about one third of our clergies are ethnic, minority ethnics.
I'm
So
curious. I'm about to be reading an article by Odell Horn, who represents, in some capacity, the Black United Methodist community. How big is the Black church in Wisconsin?
very small.
Okay.
I think they're very small. I mean, you would think, in Milwaukee that you would have some, vibrant churches going, but no. Progressive Christianity cannot plant church. They cannot keep people. It's because they incentivize people. Even like the Hmong church, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we have, I think, maybe 6 or 5 Hmong churches in Wisconsin, and none of those churches are disaffiliating. The pastors are not talking about it. The minority Hmong women is the one who is more vocal.
Yeah, they were counting on you to be a token minority, and you've actually chosen to step up and exercise the boldness that even most Anglo white privileged clergy are not comfortable exhibiting. So you are a bold ethnic minority woman leading. They say they want bold female leadership, but I wonder, have they been hostile to you at all since you?
No, they were actually really cordial.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, and I think, who cannot be nice to me? I'm always nice to people.
Remind me, who is your bishop up there?
Bishop Hsu Jung.
Oh, that's right. Is he Korean?
Yeah. He's Korean.
Okay.
And the interesting thing is, he was the DS who brought my husband into the United Methodist Church. He was the DS who actually brought my husband to Green Bay. So it was kind of, bittersweet thing for him, because we loved him. I always thought that he was traditionalist, but in my naiveness, I just didn't know how progressive he was until, recent year. But no, I think that, being the first woman Hmong clergy, and, being the minority, I think that has a lot to do with, people, especially white people who has a lot of privilege. They don't really want to, I don't think they want to say too much to me. I have been told that I need to decolonize my faith. That the faith I have in Jesus is a white man's faith. It is a white man message. So I've been colonized.
Yeah.
And so I need to decolonize my faith. And I'm just like, and this comes from white privilege. Right?
Yeah, it's fun when white people tell ethnic minorities that they're not the right kind of ethnic minority. That they don't have the right beliefs. Yeah, that's fun. So, I was just curious how much pushback you've gotten, because it is, progressives will tell conservative people of a different ethnicity that they're wrong sometimes, but a lot of times they have that intersectional justice thing where they'll just kind of be quiet if they're in the presence of an ethnic minority woman. So you've had both. Let me get clear on, it was 2019 when you really saw how bad the divide was in the denomination. At what point did you come and at what point did you take leadership in the WCA? How did that work out?
Okay. So the WCA chapter in Wisconsin started by a man named Ron Pagram, and he recruited me to be part of the council member of the WCA in Wisconsin. And so he actually, unfortunately, he had pancreas cancer, and so he passed away. I think last year. And so he just, I don't know why, but he appointed me. He said, "Mao, why don't you, you're gonna be the chair." I said, "Why me? I'm a new pastor. I don't know what I'm doing. Why? You have so many clergy who are seasoned and who are very well spoken and very well known. Why me? But I guess he has his reason. But that's how I came into to be a part of this leading the WCA. But I want to tell you an experience, and I think this is why a lot of this is just my perception. Okay. And I think this is why a lot of the progressive clergies and even the conference, they're not hostile toward me because of this experience. At the 2019 annual conference, we were voting for delegates to go to general conference, and I was one of the delegates. My name was one of the candidate. And so everybody knew, my position at that time. And so when we were at annual conference, my name was up there. Number 2, number 3, number 2, number 3. I never won. I did not win, even though my name was like, I tell you, almost at every ballot, it's like 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. My name was called at every ballot, but I never win the vote.
Oh, no.
And so here, this conference, whose message is, we are for diversity, we are for inclusion. Yeah, you are inclusion, but your tent is not big enough for someone like me.
Right, yeah. Yeah, so, they're fine for diversity when it comes to the different ways that people look. However, they only want people to believe a certain set of ideas. They don't want to have diversity of theology.
And they managed to vote for all white people.
Yeah.
And maybe 1 or 2 minority as the second, So, okay, so don't tell me that you are for diversity and you are for inclusion, because look at the candidate that you elected, all white people. So I think part of the reason why they are not hostile toward me is because of their own embarrassment, of their own doing.
Okay, sure, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's still, part of me thinks it's helpful whenever people expose what they actually believe. And, in 2019 at the General Conference, you got to see people stop pretending that they love us, and they expose that hate that they have. But it also is really hard to have colleagues that you've done ministry alongside of for 8-9 years look at you with just hatred in their face. And this is one of those things where, in my conference in Oklahoma, there was a long-standing history of progressives and conservatives working alongside of one another and getting along. However, when the time came to fight, progressives had no reservations about behaving dishonestly, abusively, coercively. And so I guess I'm glad to hear that you were treated better than conservative clergy and leadership in a lot of annual conferences, because it really is so upsetting to see it. Even if you can understand it on one level, it still just really hurts emotionally. So
yeah, I think so. And I think last year when we were going through the disaffiliation process, which is like 17 steps, and I was leading it, and I thank God that I'm able to be used in this special time, because I don't know if it was a white male leading this, that I don't know. I just think that it may have been a different story, because last year when we first started this process, I actually got an email from the right-hand man of the bishop, who is now the bishop of the Northern Illinois.
Okay.
I don't know if you know him, Dan Shereen. I actually got an email from him, and he says, in so many words, we heard that you are spreading misinformation.
Yeah.
And then you need to stop, in so many words, because if you don't, your appointment is at risk.
Yeah.
So he threatened me with my appointment.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I just emailed him back and I said, you know what? You are the leader of the conference. You are a leader. And so you should not believe easily what you hear. Did you hear this from me? Who did I misinform, and where did I say it to? Because I have not gone into any church and do anything.
Right. Yeah.
So if you just hear this from somebody, you shouldn't easily believe.
Yeah.
And I just never heard back from him.
Well, good for you to challenge an accusation in that way. So many conservative clergy get instantly intimidated and cowed when they get a message like that. For you to step forward and say, tell me the particulars You shouldn't so quickly believe. You should give me a chance to tell you what's happening before you make an accusation. Good for
Exactly.
you, Mao. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. But
So
to me, Jeffrey, it's like I have nothing to lose. It's
yeah.
like, what is he gonna do? What?
Hmm.
Take me away from this church? So what?
Yes.
I can get a job. I mean, I have nothing to lose. This is not about job security
Yeah.
for me, you know?
Good for you. Well, and it
Yeah.
shouldn't be about job security for anybody, and yet for so many
Yeah.
people, that is what figures
Yeah.
into it. So the disaffiliation process, I think you're right. Depending on the annual conference, if you were a white male and you were taking an active role in helping the church discern its disaffiliation, that the hammer would get brought down on. And it did happen in this way with the email, but I do think, well, it's impossible to say how many benefits there are
Yeah.
to being a non-white male in any given
Yeah.
situation. But even so, you
Yeah.
made it through the process. Your church took the
Yeah.
vote. Is the Wisconsin disaffiliation process, is it especially burdensome, or is it pretty fair?
Um, I mean, what I heard from Tom Lambert, if you know Tom Lambert, he
Uh-huh.
is a member of the Wisconsin Annual Conference. We are so privileged to have Tom in our Wisconsin WCA board. So he's always there to guide us and help us. So we are grateful for him. And according to Tom, yeah, it is, it is burdensome, but he said it's probably one of the most gracious process.
Okay, that's good to know.
Well, so, yeah. So I mean, we just have to go through all of these steps, and they made it particularly hard because I think they want to make sure that if a church is going to disaffiliate, that they are making the best decision, that this is what they want to do.
Right, yeah.
And so, and so I understand that. And so, yeah, but for the most part, I think they're pretty fair. And I was surprisingly very happy how it was handled. The vote was handled at annual conference, because I thought it was going to be just a mess. But no, the bishop, to his credit, he was very gracious and peaceful, and he encouraged, peace.
How many disaffiliations were there at your annual conference?
There were 43 churches.
43 churches that disaffiliated out of, it looks like there are 445 churches in the annual conference as of 2021. I'm looking at my spreadsheet here. So your bishop and your the whole annual conference, it was an amicable, polite, gracious time.
Yeah, for the most part, it was. I mean, I didn't, nobody call me names or anything like that. So
That's
it was
great.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then now your church has well, are you still in the period where you're getting all of your legal documents done?
Yeah. Every church is in their own, we have until the end of the year to turn in everything that the conference requests. So,
oh, really?
Yeah. So hopefully all of the 43 churches will be able to complete the process.
Yeah.
There are things that they're requesting, and there are some churches that, it may be harder for them to get these documents than others. But my church is almost complete. We're at the last step. And we just got an email from the GMC yesterday that we've been approved. And
hey,
so
congratulations.
We've been accepted to the GMC, yeah.
And
so,
are you GMC clergy yet?
I will be by the end of this month.
Okay.
Yeah, in July 1st, then I will be. Yeah.
And then you'll be on the road to being a new GMC bishop, I'm sure.
I don't know. But I'm going to be one of the presiding elder in Wisconsin. Because I don't know if you heard, but beginning July 1st, the Great Lakes Provisional Annual Conference will go live, and I've been a part of that. And
do you serve on the TCAT there?
I serve as the TCAT here, and then so it's Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, and Michigan. So I think total we have probably close to 200 churches right now.
Okay. You're bigger. You're bigger than our area here. I'm in. We're calling our area the Heartland area of the GMC, and I think we're only 200 or 170 GMC churches so far, I think.
Oh, I think that we're probably there. Hopefully, by the end of the year,
Yeah.
we may hit 200 because I did not know, but Michigan actually have a lot of churches,
Is that right?
more churches than Wisconsin. I think in Wisconsin, if the bishop would allow for another disaffiliation, another special annual conference, we would have more churches, but they're not. They have no more other options as far as the 2553 paragraph. So this is it, unless something else come up in 2024.
How many other churches do you think would want to disaffiliate in Wisconsin?
I would say at least as many as we have now. Okay. I know there were a few churches or a few delegates from the annual conference who protested that they never heard about it. And the sad thing is, the majority of the pastors are progressive. And so a lot of progressive pastors are determined not to talk about it.
Right.
I mean, I heard people said, the pastors, no, we're not going to talk about it. We're not going to disaffiliate. So we're not talking about it.
Yeah.
So, and Rick, and the reason why I go back to, why I decided to speak on this, because I feel that for the majority of the people in the pews, they are still theologically conservative.
Right. Yeah.
And how sad it is. It is so sad that because the pastor is progressive, that the pastor is not going to be proactive, not going to talk about it because they have made the decision to not let the people know. Right. And, if I did not prepare my church, for the past 2-3 years, we probably wouldn't be where we are today. Yeah. And so for me, that is really sad.
Yeah. Yeah. How many churches really would not be happy to be in the future United Methodist Church, but they have not been given that ability to discern that for themselves. Yeah. It's going to be a really sad future for a lot of these churches that feel trapped and have to decide if they're just going to leave their buildings and assets behind. I'm glad your church isn't one of those churches, but I'm of the mind, by the end of this year, by the end of 2553, it looks like there will be 6,000 or more churches that have disaffiliated. I'm of the mind that even more than that would want to disaffiliate. Yeah, go ahead.
Yesterday, I have our last meeting with Jake Thorell, and I wrote it down. He says, as of yesterday, we have, where I put it? We have, I think, 6,000 churches that disaffiliated.
They already have?
Yes, as of yesterday.
Wow.
Yeah. Yes.
6,000. And there's still several special annual conferences scheduled, so who knows? But I'm of the mind that several more want to get out if they could, but are not going to be able to.
Yeah, he projected that by the end of this year, we would have like 7,200 churches.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, it's been really. I reached out to. We're going to see if I can put it together. The protocol for graceful, peaceful reconciliation and separation that was crafted in 2020 for the general conference that was then postponed. We are now treating that. It'll be considered next year, but it'll be dead on arrival. The guy who put that together is Ken Feinberg, who offered his services to us. And I thought it's just so unfortunate that we had people pour their energy into a peaceable separation, and then instead we've had this very contentious time of the denomination coercing congregations into staying against their will and stuff. So I thought, why don't I reach out to Ken Feinberg and see if he would do an interview talking about that. So he actually, we're trying to arrange an interview sometime soon because I wonder if he has any wisdom for us to offer. Because I'm so glad to hear about Wisconsin, as far left as it is. I'm so glad to hear that they were kind to right-leaning churches that wanted to exit. But that's not necessarily the norm when you look at all the other annual conferences in America.
Yeah. And I think it's due to the bishop. I think the bishop has really tried hard to, make peace.
There are peacemaker bishops. There are some.
He always preaches about peace, and he always affirmed that, if you want to go, you should go. He's not going to make anybody who wants to go stay.
Yeah.
The unfortunate part is, it's just this process that they made it so like the timeline is so tight that if you miss the first deadline, you're done.
Yeah. So I wonder about, many conferences are already using paragraph 2549 to allow churches to simply be closed, pay a certain fee, and then take all their assets with them. I wonder how much that is going to be used in the coming year between now and the general conference. I wonder if your bishop is open to that at all. Do you know?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Well, let me ask you this. You have the same, I think you and I are standing at about the same elevation looking at the big picture. What do you think do you think there is anything to be done for churches that are left behind who want to disaffiliate, but the window has closed on their disaffiliation process? Do you think that there's anything those churches and their leadership should be looking at doing, or do you think that they're just...
I think right now, for the most part, I think a lot of them are just waiting for what will come out from 2024 General Conference. I know Tom Lambert and Jay Thorell, they're working on a legislation to have another exit
provision.
We'll see how that goes. Yeah. But I think that's the only hope. If there's another way that are created at 2024 General Conference. If not, I think a lot of churches would probably just leave the building, especially big humongous churches in the city that causes them all their money to maintain. And their small congregation, they might just, and especially the minority churches where they're just ministry, they don't have their own building. And they can walk out anytime. So I see, I could see, especially like the Hmong churches. I already heard that they're just waiting for 2024. If the language and the discipline changes regarding human sexuality, they will walk. So that is what I heard. So, I mean, for the most part, the ethnic churches are still pretty traditional when it comes to their theology. And so the reason why they're remaining is because part of it is their loyalty to the conference, but also because they just don't know what the GMC is, and it's going to be unknown,
right? Whenever I spoke with Odell, he was pretty clear that black churches are more conservative than the Anglo churches in America. But even so, he said they're not early adopters, first off. And I think that does deal with this going into the unknown thing. I think maybe if there is such a thing as white privilege, white folks can be more confident going into the unknown because they just know how to navigate those waters better than ethnic minority churches in some ways. So we are bigger risk takers.
And I think there are some concerns, legitimate concern from the minority clergy, because the appointment system in the GMC is a little bit different. The local churches is going to have a lot more say in their new pastors. So, a lot of ethnic pastors are, not comfortable. They don't know if they may not have or they may not get an appointment. So it's understandable, but I think it goes back to what I said earlier. It is a call, and it is not a job, a security. Are you going to trust God, or are you going to trust the system?
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, once you say yes to the Lord as a clergy and being used by God, you gotta be willing to go where God calls you. And and that's how my husband and I, and talking about me moving a lot, and I think that plays a lot into how I'm formed, because I'm not afraid of moving, because I can God can put me in a strange place and I will fit right in because I know how to do that.
Yeah, you are a particularly resilient person. We needed, this was a moment when we needed a lot more people like you. And you really are quite a rare personality in this whole mix. It's not to say that nobody but you has been bold. But we needed many more models of boldness like yours. And so that was one of the reasons I was excited to record something with you today, because a lot of people don't know who you are and they don't have many models of bold clergy leadership. And I think it really puts to shame a lot of our leadership when they go, heck, here's this ethnic minority woman who English is a second language, And she has accomplished so much. She has so much confidence, and she's sitting here telling her story, saying, "What are they going to do to me? They're going to fire me?" And to have your boldness and your clarity, I would love to just be having people tell those stories all day, so that the career pastors who look at this as job security can feel some rightful shame about how they've had a lack of boldness in this process. So, Mal, thank you for your example.
Of course, it's just, and I think that's, I try not to judge, right? I try not to judge people,
right?
But at the same time, I also understand, my calling, and I could have, have a nice job and have a nice home, security home, and rooted my family and have everything that I need, but that is not what God's called me to do. The moment I want to grow root, God uprooted me. The moment I want to grow root, God uprooted me to it. Yeah. Okay, God, whatever, just whatever. Here, just tell me where you want.
It's funny. We have so many people in leadership talk about going out of our comfort zone and following God's prompting. And even as we talk about it, we're so reluctant to do it. It's almost as though we think by talking about it, we don't have to do it. But we need those examples of people who are actually practicing what we all preach. So I hope God continues to bless your ministry as you enter the Global Methodist Church. I think both of you and I are the conversation that needs to happen now is, now that we have left the United Methodist Church, what kind of church are we going to build together in the Global Methodist Church? What cultural practices are we going to carry over from the United Methodist Church? And what new things, what new standards are we going to insist upon to protect us from going through the same thing again? So I hope the fact, I had forgotten that Tom Lambrecht was from your area. So the fact that you and he are together, I would like to think that you two, along with several others, can form a good team maintaining good scriptural holiness in the GMC.
We have a great team going here, and we have accomplished so much. You should follow us sometime. I think at the end of October, the last week in October, we're going to have our first convening annual conference in southern part of Illinois. So it's going to be great.
Well, how about with this interview, you send me whatever links you like to Facebook page or website or whatever, and we'll promote your new provisional annual conference. And then is there anything else that you think would be good to plug or promote while people are watching this?
Well, I don't think there's anything else, but I want to say, I want to say to the the minority clergies and pastors who are afraid that the GMC is not going to be friendly toward minority or ethnic clergies. I just want to assure you that GMC is totally for you. They will welcome you, and I think that me being a part of the leadership TCAT with the Great Lakes Provision Annual Conference and working with so many great leaders is a privilege. And I think that the GMC is really about, we are the true inclusivity. We include, everybody, and so, so I just want to encourage, if you are a minority clergy and you're afraid of the GMC, please do not be afraid. And there are many who think that the GMC is not going to ordain or clergy women. They're not going to promote clergy women. And look at me. We have clergy women in leadership. We have clergy women, doing all sorts of stuff in the conference, in the denomination. So I think this is just what I want to say and encourage. Minority clergies and also, women clergy who may be afraid of the GMC.
Yeah, I think as much as the denomination has been clear on these things, the Global Methodist Church has been clear, it's still hard to believe until you see actual minority female clergy speaking and taking positions of leadership. I just think that's one of those things that's only words until you actually see the people. So
definitely.
Well, I think that's a good place to end. So let's maybe there's another future conversation. It looks like you're going to be in leadership for a bit longer, but for now, we'll draw this to a close. You and I are going to stay on and pray for a little bit afterwards. But if someone has watched this conversation and you've enjoyed getting to know about Mao and her ministry, go ahead and follow the Provisional Annual Conference that she's a part of. If you are an ethnic minority or female clergy and you would benefit from visiting with her personally, her name is in the field of the video you're watching. You can search for her on Facebook, and I'm sure she'll be happy to hear from you, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty active in Facebook too. So, you guys can follow me or find me there.
Very good. Well, thanks everybody for supporting Plain Spoken. A lot of good content coming down the pike. So go ahead and subscribe and share this stuff, especially if you know somebody. Mao is particularly concerned with a few demographics. So if you know anybody in that camp, send this along to them. Mao and I and several others believe that light is the best disinfectant. And so we just need to spread good information at this point. And thank you for being a part of that with me. And Mao, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Jeffrey, for the opportunity.